after that beautiful speech, we're gonna go ahead and record the meeting. 1 second here. And then quickly, I'm gonna go ahead. Again, I'm Edgar. I am the founder of this organization, but I'm also gonna invite my team to share a little bit about themselves. And so Christy.
Yes, hello. I think I've had the pleasure of meeting all, if not most of you. I am Christy Moreno. I'm the proud mother of Nina and Emilia, charter public school students here in Kansas City, and the reason why I have gotten involved in education advocacy. I work with Revolución Educativa, and I serve as Chief Community Advocacy and Impact Officer. And I am just very excited to share with you and be very authentic in sharing that I have found my home in Revolución Educativa. I'm very energized, and I am ready to build that collective power that we talk about. I will go ahead and introduce Devin, my colleague, who's not here today. Devin Teran and I work, together as a team. He is the Director of Policy and Partnerships with Revolución Educativa, and brings just a lot of great experience and expertise as a formal principal and educator here in Kansas City and in KCK as well. And both of us work to really build also connections with our elected officials, not just local, not just in Kansas City, but across the state. And I'll hand it over to Ivan.
Hi, I'm Ivan Ramirez. I'm the Digital Experience Director for RevEd. So my job is to put all the stories out of what we are doing, the amazing work that our leaders and our advocates are doing in the community. So yeah, Erica.
Thank you. Erica Garcia Reyes, Director of Administration, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. I have held a number of positions in the past, but mostly advocating and supporting students to become leaders. And so I'm a huge advocate for the Latino community.
I gotta say, I'm so proud of these folks individually and collectively. I don't think I could bring together a better group of folks for this kind of work and for what it means for our community. So excited to be in the work with them and also to learn from them and from their different areas of expertise. I'm going to turn it over to Christy, who is leading our advocacy work. And so she has some updates around these issues.
So yes, thank you, Edgar. So part of what we do a variety of things and engage in with our community in a variety of ways. For example, one-on-one coaching sessions with parents that have advocacy issues to bring to the table. Some very personal, some as a collective. We do a lot of community building, and we have great plans to give opportunities for our community to get to know each other, to find a common ground on issues that they want to advocate for. But right now, these three that you're seeing right now really pertain to the legislative session that of course is happening right now. Legislative session goes from January all the way to mid-May. And one of our objectives as an advocacy organization is to engage in policy making, right? And the way in which we do that is connecting with our elected officials, bringing issues to the table. Specifically, thank you. Specifically, issues that are impacting Latino students, parents, educators, and the community as a whole. Specifically in the education arena. There are three initiatives that we have either supported or taken part in. Right now, we'll start with the first one, funding equity. And before I share specifically on funding equity, one of the things that we do is that we publish, and you have seen them if you've subscribed to our newsletters, we publish policy memoranda on the issues that we're advocating for, because it's important for us to create a material that we can share with the community. It's the same thing that we share with elected officials, with leaders that are, impacting our constituents as a whole. And so I invite you to look those up or find them on our pages. I know Ivan has made a really good, just solid effort and consistent in sharing this information out. And I can also email these to you. But it's very, very good for us and a good practice to develop these policy memoranda, because it really gives a clear point of view on why Revolución Educativa is engaging in these advocacy efforts. The first one that you see here on your slide is funding equity. Funding equity specifically pertains to charter public schools funding formula across the state of Missouri. This is a funding formula that has not been updated in 16 years, which means that public school students attending charter public schools in the state of Missouri, which if you didn't know, charter public schools are only by statute allowed to exist and operate in two cities, in St. Louis and in Kansas City. So public school students that attend charter schools are being underfunded. And this inequity, right, in the funding is only increasing every year that this issue doesn't get addressed. Last year, that funding gap impacting the over 25,000 students in the state of Missouri, of which 17% are Latino, last year it amounted up to $30 million. This year it amounts up to $50 million. And the longer we wait for this issue to be corrected at a legislative level, the wider that gap is going to grow. And it impacts not only the students, but it impacts the services and the supports that their schools can provide to them. And so we have been supporting House Bill 1552 for funding equity. There's a Senate bill that is a companion bill, and that one is SB 869. The update on that is that actually it has already moved past the Senate, the House Budget Committee. It got out of that committee, which was great. Then it went through two smaller committees, which are the bill perfectioning, rules committees, and it went to the House floor. It passed the House. It was sent over to the Senate. The Senate Education Committee voted it out just recently and a few days ago, and now it goes to the Senate floor. It actually had a hearing at the Senate floor last night, I believe, unless the filibuster is still going on. And then it goes to the Senate floor for a vote. So that's where we are. We're asking all advocates, whether it's teachers, whether it's allies of charter public schools, parents, community partners, to reach out to their elected officials and ask them to support funding equity. Unfortunately, as with any bill and any legislation, there's always an opposition. And unfortunately, in this case, opposition really is rooted in misinformation about what charter public schools do and who they serve. And so a lot of times when we are supporting legislative initiatives like this, our role is not only to say, reach out to your elected official, but to provide data and fact-based information, right? So that we can help move legislation forward and at the same time combat, fallacies or false narratives that are impacting our progress. I am hopeful that this year funding equity will pass. There have been many obstacles. There are negotiations in the legislative process. If you are not familiar, there's a lot of back and forth, amendments that are proposed, amendments that are taken off. And so that's the fun part of learning how legislation works. I am very proud to share that we have been able to host a few discussions, community discussions about this. We were able to take a bus full of advocates, including superintendents, teachers, school staff, parents, social workers, to provide their personal stories and their testimony to elected officials in Jefferson City. And that is at the root of what we do, right? Empowering our community to use their voice, to use their stories to impact collective change. So for more information, I know Ivan, I think, dropped a link in the chat about our funding equity policy memo. If you want more information, you can go to that, or you can contact me directly and I'd be happy to share more about that. But right now our call to action is for anyone who cares about public education and public school students, and in our case, specifically Latino students. We're asking them to make a call to their elected officials or to write an email. And just as simple as saying, please support funding equity for all public school students. I will share real brief a statistic of actually in Kansas City, Missouri, in the KCPS boundaries, right? Both systems, KCPS and the charter public schools share an equal student population that is specific to Latino. So 28% of KCPS students are Latino. For charter public schools, is actually 29% of charter public school students in Kansas City are Latino. This is why for us, it's an important issue to advocate for. It's not that we're for one or the other system, is that it is an issue that is impacting Latino students as a whole, and we must activate and address it. In the city of St. Louis as well, charter public schools are educating more Latino kids than the district is. And so this is important to us as we support legislation or support these initiatives, is to be data driven and to show why it matters to us. The second initiative that we are supporting is tuition equity. Tuition equity really impacts higher education, but it impacts high school students looking to further their education beyond high school, because that experience, those applications, seeking for college opportunities and scholarships happens during high school. And I say this because we really focus on K-12 education. And so if anyone asks like, well, this is a higher education thing, well, yes, but it impacts high school students, right? We also have a policy memorandum for that. And I will just show some statistics about this. Nearly 35,000 US citizens in Missouri live with at least one family member who is undocumented. So we know that this is a community widespread in an effort, right? We know that at least every Latino member of our community knows someone who has either been impacted or that could benefit from tuition equity. Really what this means is that undocumented students that are Missouri residents are being charged international fees, right, and rates for their college education or beyond high school. This is ridiculous, right? It's almost 3 times more than a Missouri resident would pay. This is absolutely horrendous, inequitable. There's a lot of issues with that legislation. There is House Bill 2613 that Representative Ingrid Burnett from District 19 actually is the district where Revolución Educativa has our offices. She has filed legislation to remove language of the budget. It's House Bill 3, and it's a budget bill that contains language that restricts universities or colleges of providing tuition equity to undocumented students. And so there's a lot happening with this bill. It hasn't really had a hearing yet. We don't know if it's going to have hearings this year, but as a community, it's very important. And as constituents, as allies of our students, it's important that we start raising awareness and making noise about this issue, because just so you know, all our surrounding states, surrounding Missouri, all of them have tuition equity laws. And we're the only state of the middle that is not only being inequitable, but we are losing students in Missouri that are going to other states because they have tuition equity there. And we want to keep our students here in Missouri, right? So I invite you to also advocate for this. If you know anybody that would like to share their story on wanting to further their education and not having access to equitable tuition, please contact Ivan. We would love to amplify those stories. We've held panel discussions. We're actually working with a group of students from Guadalupe Charter School High School that they have their Impact Academy project is tuition equity. So we're working around storytelling, around building campaigns. We're going to have a visit to Jefferson City where the students will advocate for themselves, and they will be advocating for their community and relatives that they know have been impacted. And it's a great learning opportunity for them as well as to show them that their voice matters, and that we can be more powerful when we work as a collective. So that's tuition equity. And the third one, I know I've taken more time than I was allotted. Sorry about that. The third one is the ESSER III COVID relief funds. So unfortunately, it's a shame really that Missouri was the last state of all states to appropriate the COVID relief funds, or the American Rescue Plan COVID relief funds, specifically ESSER III funds that pertain to public education support. And we were very close to losing the $1.9 billion that was allotted to support public education, and really going to the most impacted populations, which are obviously our low income and children of color attending public schools. And our deadline was March 24th for the governor to appropriate that, and it had to move through the legislature, and it wasn't happening. So Revolución Educativa took action. We put out there a sign-on petition that really went nationwide. The petition was not only to add your signature and put your name, but it would actually automatically, as you signed on, would send emails to all the elected officials and legislators across the state, including the governor. And we mobilized you guys. We mobilized with over 130 signatures, and within 3 days, that budget bill had passed. So I am very proud of that, and I do take credit for that. I know that there are other organizations that were pushing for this, but it was an issue that had been just lingering there and sitting there with not many outcomes. And so I'm very proud to say that we relied on the support of our community, of our allies, local, state, and nationwide, to support the state of Missouri and support us in pushing for these monies to reach our students and reach their schools. And now our job is to follow the money, right? Because each school has been allotted these monies that are to address the catastrophic consequences the pandemic has had on our children and our educators and our schools and all the support systems or services, sorry. And so we want to make sure that we are holding our schools accountable and with transparency in place to use these funds appropriately. And so that's it for me today. If anybody has any questions, please reach out, christy@revedkc.org. And I'd be more than happy to set up a one-on-one to share more information on these legislative and issue advocacy initiatives.
Thank you, Christy, for that comprehensive briefing on these 3 issues. We're going to just quickly jump into Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, any feedback for us, now is the time.
I guess this is Nicole from Schola Vita. I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, because this is important work. And I know just being at a single site, small charter, that it's that work in Jeff City is important, but it's hard to get away from the building. So I just want to thank you for being that voice for us. I'm just so thankful that somebody's that voice for our community. And then I just had a quick question. I didn't know, Christy, if you all were planning any school tours to get those legislators eventually in our buildings. So I just didn't know if you had any plans for that. I know there's other people that have done that before, but I feel like there's always room for improvement in that space.
Absolutely, and that is certainly something we can and would be happy to do. One of the things I always share is that when we connect with legislators, the majority of times they've been like, invite us, right? Reach out. To me, it's like, you need to be mindful of your communities too, right? I know that you're busy, you're doing your work in Jefferson City, half of the year. But it is time for us to bring them to us, like to as we say in the education advocacy world, to pull our own chair into the decision-making table. We can no longer wait for invitations because those aren't happening. Everyone's crazy busy. So it is up to us to take the initiative and say, I want so-and-so legislator in my school. And we would be happy to facilitate that. There's a lot of excitement from legislators about the work that Revolución Educativa is doing. They are reaching out to us. They want to meet with us and with our constituents and the communities that we serve. So we'd be absolutely more than happy to bring legislators and any elected official really to tour the city and to tour your schools. So yeah, we can definitely make that happen. And if you have any specific legislator in mind, please shoot me an email, let me know, and we will facilitate that.
Yes, I do. And thank you, because that was going to be my next question, if you would help coordinate that. So I will be reaching out. So thank you.
Yes, of course.
Any other questions, feedback? Okay. Hearing none, just a quick reminder that we are always open. As my friend says, our door is always open unless it's closed, but we rarely have closed doors at Rev Ed. So, by the way, I think most of you have seen our space 2203 Lexington. And so we always welcome people walking in and joining us there. Come by and visit, but just some quick upcoming events. I can speak to these real quickly. We have Acción with, actually, you know what, Christy, talk a little bit about Acción, because I know you know our honorary speaker well.
We're very excited. So our Acción Summit is happening this Saturday. Please register. Ivan has been kind enough to put the link up here on the slide. So our Acción Summit is our advocacy summit, right? And it is a hands-on 2-hour high energy summit where we will get to build community. We will get to share our advocacy concerns or issues of interest, and we will get to brainstorm and build around those. I'm very excited to share that Marisol Quevedo Rerucha will be our guest speaker, our keynote speaker. If you do not know Marisol Quevedo Rerucha, she is just an eminence in the world of education, in the world of restorative practices, in the world of equity, and specifically advocating for Latino communities. She is a former educator. She is also a former principal. She leads a lot of the healing and conversation circles and restorative practices, as well as being the chief of strategy for the National Parents Union. Of course, she also sits on a variety of high-level, high-impact national boards representing Latinos in the United States, and any stakeholder in the education world in the United States. So we're very excited to have her. The first 100 registrants will get a copy of her book, which you really, really will enjoy, I'm sure. And so we will also be highlighting 6 Latinx activists around the country, including some local activists who have really made an impact in their communities. We talk about advocacy issues coming from the community, right? And the collective power being built within the community. And so we will be sharing some of these stories of impact to inspire, to motivate, and to share with our attendees that change is possible when we come together and when we have the resources, the tools, and the connections in the community to back that work up. So please make sure you register for Acción. We will have resources available after our summit that people can use as guides or samples on how to advocate for their specific issue of interest. And the biggest takeaway is that community building and the networking piece, that we will meet a lot of people that we haven't met that are interested in doing the same work, or at least engaging in really trying to make change happen for our students and our educators and our school systems in the country. Yeah, you wanna take the next one on, Edgar?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Christy. So we have a special event. I don't know if you know this, but March 31st, actually today's March 31st. Today is Cesar Chavez Day. And so in celebration of Cesar Chavez and his spirit around organizing and building power and having our voices heard as a community, we actually are we're having a fireside chat with his son, Paul Chavez, and Celia Garcia Alvarado, who works for the Cesar Chavez Foundation around issues of education. So that's going to be Thursday, April 7th at 6 p.m. CST. You can find that on our socials, so Facebook, YouTube, and whatnot. And so that's going to be a really just an honoring of that spirit, and also having a conversation like, why is this important, right? And how are we tying our work today to the historical efforts that have happened prior to us and getting to us where we need to be. And then we also have a special panel. Oops, I don't mean to thank you early, but we have a special panel discussion with Representative Maggie Nierenberg. She has a teacher tax credit that she is trying to get through the legislature. It may not happen this year, but we want to learn from her and what her, she's a former teacher herself. And so really want to understand her perspective as a teacher and how she navigates the legislative world with that perspective, as well as talking to other teachers and seeing what the impact of her bill would create on their ability to teach and to teach effectively and to teach holistically as well. So that is what's coming up. other than that, we thank you for joining us for our first community charla. We're going to, yes, Ms. Goodman.
Sorry, what was the
Good.
time on that April 20th date?
April 20th, and we are still working to confirm. It's likely going to be 6:30.
Okay, thanks.
So we will get that out once we have that. We're still waiting to hear back from her legislative aide on 6:30, but that's when we think it's going to happen. Other than that, we thank you for being here. We are going to do this. My commitment is to do this on a monthly basis. And my ask of you is that if you know somebody who is interested in supporting Latino students, who is interested in making sure that our Latino students have a voice, please let us know. Please connect us to them. We want to invite them into this work. We want to talk about the issues that matter. And we want to continue to grow our community. So we appreciate your support in that. Other than that, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time.